Hi, I'm here today with Gene Baur, President and co-founder of Farm Sanctuary, the nation's leading farm animal protection organization. Gene, tell us a little about what inspired you to create Farm Sanctuary.
Well, back in 1986, there was very little awareness about what was happening to animals on factory farms, and there was also not enough awareness about the environmental problems, the human health consequences. So in 1986, we founded Farm Sanctuary to take on these issues, to expose the cruelty, to rescue individuals, and to tell their stories. And these animals have become ambassadors, and I'm happy to say there's more awareness now than ever before on these issues, and I think it's just growing.
Oh, wonderful. And looking back at the journey that you've taken, what are some of the things that you're most proud of?
Well, I think putting this issue on the map and seeing the public discussion that is now occurring. The New York Times covers this fairly regularly, for example. Mainstream journalists, CNN, has stories about the benefits of eating plants instead of animals. Bill Clinton is now practically a vegan. So I'm very proud of how far we've come. I think we still have a long way to go, but these issues on the map and getting people to start thinking about the importance of their food choices.
Absolutely. And can you share with us some of the obstacles that you've encountered over the last 25 years and what some of your goals are for 2012?
Well, I think some of the primary obstacles are just habits and apathy. People do what they do because that's what they do, because that's what they learned how to do. That's because everybody around them is doing it without really thinking.
Right.
So I think one of the biggest obstacles is that people develop habits that are not very healthy and that oftentimes contribute to cruelty. And there's an apathy and a laziness and a desire not to look at this factory farming system and not to make changes to make things better. So those are the primary obstacles. And information also. Most people don't really know or don't believe that they can live well by eating plants instead of animals, and they want to believe, and they sometimes delude themselves into believing that these animals on farms are treated well and that they're there for that purpose. So we have an amazing ability to rationalize and to come up with excuses for doing things, especially when we don't feel very good about what we're doing. And that's a big part of the factory farming industry, is that the factory farmers would rather we not think very much about what happens to the animals. They're actually trying to pass laws to make it illegal to take pictures and document what's happening at these places. And that shows just how far they'll go to keep these conditions concealed. Because I think most people are humane. This is the good news. Most people are humane. Most people do not like to support cruelty. And when people become aware of the conditions and recognize that they can live without eating animals, I think we're going to see enormous changes, and I think we're starting to right now.
And what are some of your goals for 2012?
For 2012, one of our exciting new initiatives is the Compassionate Communities campaign, where we're going to be encouraging citizens in various cities around the U.S. to get together and to build communities around healthy vegan living, and also confronting and educating people about factory farming. So I'm very happy about that. It's very much of a grassroots effort. We're also going to be working on supporting federal legislation to outlaw battery cages. These are small confinement systems where egg-laying hens are kept. So we're doing legislative work at the policy level. We're also doing grassroots organizing, and I'm excited about both.
Oh, that sounds wonderful. Can you describe to us a little, because I know you visited these facilities where these animals are kept. Can you describe what it's like to visit an industrial pig farm, a chicken factory farm, and a cattle slaughterhouse?
Well, I mean, these places are very depressing. The animals are treated like commodities. They're lined up in cages and crates in these massive warehouses. They're stacked in tiers in some cases, in the case of egg-laying hens, for example. And, death and disease is the norm. Suffering is customary, and it's acceptable. Bad has become normal. So, it's very upsetting to see animals treated so badly, but it's also upsetting to see people who've become so calloused and who've come to accept such horrible conditions as normal. And, people who work in slaughterhouses and in these factory farms, oftentimes do things to numb themselves, I think, and to sort of turn off their own hearts and their own conscience. And alcoholism is a problem, and then the violence at these facilities sometimes goes home, and you have domestic violence problems. And it's just a very sad, unhealthy situation for all life involved.
Absolutely. Can you share maybe one or two uplifting Farm Sanctuary rescue stories with us?
Yeah, well, one of my favorite is when I found Opie, a calf, at a stockyard in upstate New York. Mm-hmm. It was a freezing day, and he was a newborn. In fact, he was sent to the stockyard on the same day he was born. He was still wet from afterbirth. and he was laying in an alleyway dying of hypothermia. He was still wet from afterbirth. He was freezing to death. And when I asked the stockyard worker what was going to happen with this calf, he responded that, well, he had to bury him later today. And I said, well, what if I take him off your hands? And he said, sure, go ahead. So I took the calf to a local veterinarian. She tried to take his temperature. It was so low it wouldn't even read on the thermometer. She said, what are you wasting your time for? It makes no economic sense to take care of this sick, dying animal. And I said, to me this isn't an economic equation. This is an individual. I want to do what I can to help him. So she finally gave him intravenous fluids, and I took him home and watched over him, and he recovered fully. He ended up weighing close to 3,000 pounds.
Oh my goodness!
Lived a long, happy life at the farm, and that's one of my funnest stories to tell because people had given up on him, and he lived so well. And one of the things too that was interesting about Opie's recovery is that he did well physically. He had everything he needed in terms of nutrients, and we gave him antibiotics to fight infection and intravenous fluid to treat hydration, to treat hypothermia. But he still wasn't thriving. And I was kind of wondering what was going on, so I took him out to the barn with the other cows, and then he started thriving. He wanted to be with his people, and that was kind of a neat thing about that rescue as well. Absolutely. It was a beautiful thing to see.
And they all have their own personalities, don't they, these farm animals? Like dogs and cats, really, isn't that right?
Absolutely, yeah. Some are more outgoing than others, some are more shy than others, some like people more than others. So at our sanctuaries, we give the animals the choice of whether they want to interact with two-legged people or not. And if they do, they come up and they get to spend time with us. If not, they can go to a further distant pasture and just enjoy their own time with their own people.
And chill out.
Yes, exactly.
In your book, Gene, you say something very wonderful. You say, overcoming cruelty is something we can do one person, one choice, one act of conscience at a time. So can you give us some examples maybe on what parents and children can do practically on a daily basis to support farm animals and make kinder choices?
Well, I think just becoming aware of the fact that we can live and be very healthy with eating plant foods and no animal foods. And I've been a vegan since 1985. I believe it's the healthiest, most sensible way to eat and to live. And I encourage people to consider a vegan lifestyle. But if somebody's not able to become a vegan immediately, just one day a week eating plant foods instead of animal foods, or just one meal a day eating plant foods instead of animals, or in some cases just replacing meatballs in the spaghetti, for example, with veggie meatballs or with vegetables. On pizza, you can sometimes find pizza with non-dairy cheeses. That's a very good thing to do, and put a lot of veggies on there, and that's actually healthier. So what I'm suggesting is something that I think is good for animals, but also for people. One of our primary messages at Farm Sanctuary is to encourage people to eat food that we can feel good about, instead of, saying, like many people do, oh, I don't want to know how those animals are treated because it bothers me. It's better, I think, for people to be able to know what they're buying and the conditions under which that food is raised. And if we're talking about plant foods, it's a lot less bloody and violent than animal foods, obviously. So it feels a lot better. So people eat in a way that aligns with their values, that I think would be very positive, and also eat in a way that is aligned with our interests. To eat food that is good for us, not food that makes us sick, like we do in this country. It's terrible. If you look at our health in this country, it's tragic. We're eating in a way that's killing us, and that's completely irrational. So if people start making choices that are aligned with our values and interests, we're going to see a revolution in our food system, and I think we're starting to see that now.
Okay. Thank you so much, Gene, for being here today and sharing your story. For those of you who want to know more about Gene and Farm Sanctuary, please go to farmsanctuary.org. Thank you, Gene.
Thank you, Annabel.